hope you can stay with us.
What a pleasure. What an honor. So welcome back to the Armstrong and Getty studios for the umpteenth time. Congressman Tom McClintock represents the 4th District, California, a longtime state senator in California. Always right, always ignored. And he harbors deep-seated anger because of it. Tom, how are you?
Just fine.
Do you get any joy out of the fact that you were right all these years about the financial situation in California, or is it only painful?
Well, it's frustrating. There's a great story of Roosevelt asking Churchill at the very outset of World War II. Roosevelt says, well, what do you our fellows are having a terrible time coming up with a name for this war. What are you fellows calling it over there? And Churchill's immediate response was, we call it the unnecessary war. Never was there a war easier to prevent. And it's frustrating because really this could have been prevented. I point out to folks that at the height of our revenues, before the recession, when the state was taking in more money than it had ever taken in its history, it was already running nearly a $10 billion deficit.
Mm. It's, you know what, it's a building full of crack whores, isn't it, down there in Sacramento? I mean, it's just...
We definitely want to get into that, but we thought we'd have to start with on the Prop 8 ruling. What is your feeling about California and our weird prop system, and we spend all this time and money and effort to vote, and then almost always gets overturned by courts? How do you see the balance between the will of the people and the judicial system?
Well, I don't think there's any question. It's beginning to undermine the respect for the rule of law, and it makes a mockery of legal principles that date back hundreds of years and have served our nation very well. I mean, the whole opinion that Judge Walker issued essentially comes down to this, that the traditional institution of marriage that's been supported by more than 2 centuries of jurisprudence is an affront to the American Bill of Rights. Well, that would come as a complete shock to the authors of the American Bill of Rights and to all of those judges over more than 2 centuries who have decided in support of that institution. The good news is the American founders recognized the damage that could be done by feeble reasoning on the bench, and they built in a system of checks and balances that starts with the appellate process, and that's now being called into play.
Did you follow the trial?
A little bit.
It was odd. It was very odd. They had days of testimony, people coming in with tears in their eyes, testifying how much they loved each other.
Which has nothing to do with the rule of law, does it?
No. But obviously it did to the judge, because he stated in his reasoning that 2 gay people are every bit as in love as, that sort of thing, as if that's got anything to do with it, which I don't think it. And I don't care about gay marriage. It's not an issue that makes any difference to me, really. I find that an odd way to come to the conclusions.
Well, it's a political statement. It's a value statement, but it's certainly not a legal statement. And he was supposed to be deciding the law.
But just in general, this idea of we go and vote, whether it's on, how to deal with illegal immigration or whatever, and it feels like it's always overturned. Should we give up on this whole prop system? I mean, what should we do?
No, obviously all of the laws we enact have to be compatible with our Constitution. All the other laws are government documents. The Constitution is the people's document. And that is supreme. So I do support a legal system that is there to assure that any laws that are adopted are consistent with the Constitution that, as Reagan used to say, is not the government's document telling the people what they can and cannot do. Constitution is the people's document telling our government those things that we will allow it to do. So that part of the process is sound. The problem is, we have developed a generation of judges who feel that it is their prerogative to ignore the Constitution, to ignore the law, and simply to legislate their personal opinions. And that's wrong whether it's done by the left or the right, and that's where we ought to be directing our attention.
Is there any way to limit that, to rein it in?
Ultimately, there are 3 lines of defense for the Constitution. The first are the people we elect to office, who, by the way, make those judicial appointments. That's why we require every elected official, from the local mosquito abatement district up to the President of the United States, to swear to preserve, protect, and defend that Constitution, and not to adopt any laws that are in conflict with that Constitution. Obviously, that line of defense is failing. There's a second line of defense, and that's, of course, the court system, and ultimately this will make its way to the Supreme Court, and ultimately I think that this very, very embarrassing a bit of feeble reasoning from Judge Walker will be overturned. But the ultimate, but that's not a certain line of defense. That has failed from time to time. Ultimately, the final line of defense of the American Constitution, which has never failed us, is the American people. It's the American people saying this is not right. This has got to be changed. That's when they stand up and set things straight, and they do that at the ballot box.
We're talking with Congressman Tom McClintock and talking about the U.S. Constitution. There are some now that want to amend the U.S. Constitution about this whole, quote, anchor babies situation. Where do you come down on that?
Well, that's the 14th Amendment, which was never designed to legitimize the citizenship for children born to people who had entered the country illegally.
Why was it designed, for anybody who doesn't know?
It was a post-Civil War enactment to erase any doubt that the child of a slave was an American citizen.
Do you know if any other countries do this? If my wife and I had been in France when Sam was born, would he be a French citizen?
I don't believe. I'm not aware of any other country.
List.
I'm not aware of any other country that has that requirement. I know, for example, Mexico's immigration law is brutally exclusionary.
Okay, that's a good question right there, since we're mostly talking about people from Mexico. If I had been in Mexico on vacation, would Sam be a Mexican?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You know, it's interesting. I did a bunch of reading about this last night because I'm hardcore for legislating a change in the 14th Amendment, because I don't think we need to amend it. Based on the legal reading I've done as a guy who almost went to law school. But it was interesting. I came across an ostensibly authoritative list of countries that have, as I almost went to law school, is it Jus Soli? Jussoli? Latin. It's law of ground. Do you get Latin pronunciations in law school or what?
Oh, I never went to law school. I was another guy that almost went to law school.
You're a non-lawyer in Congress? Burn him! Burn him at the stake! Oh, my God. That's funny. I didn't realize that. Anyway.
That'd be a good constitutional amendment right there. No lawyers in Congress.
Ever again. It's birthright citizenship, and this is a list, and it's mostly Penny Ante Island republics, but it mentions Canada. And it mentions Mexico.
Well, funny you should mention that. A guy just approached me the other day. He was engaged to a Canadian. They were going across the Canadian border. They stopped him at the border. He had a DUI. They refused him entry into Canada because of his DUI.
Canada used to have this law, but overturned it because too many Chinese people were flying to Vancouver, having a baby, and becoming Canadian citizens. India has overturned it in recent years because so many Pakistanis were coming across the border and doing the same thing for Indian health benefits.
Hey, we're almost out of time, and we haven't let Tom talk about what he wants to talk about.
Okay.
We got like 15 seconds. Why are you here?
Oh, well, what I want to talk about, stop the spending.
Oh, do we have him for another?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea of that. I was not informed. Well, I'm glad you're sticking around because we got more to talk to you about. Thank God. Stay with us. Tom McClintock coming up. You are listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show. Congressman Tom McClintock in studio, and we got another segment with him, thank goodness.
Nancy Pelosi has ordered him back to Washington. We'll find out why, among other things. Stay tuned.
Budgetary stuff, gay marriage, all coming up. 7 o'clock, Armstrong and Getty. Hey there, we are Armstrong and Getty. I'm Jack Armstrong. He's Joe Getty. Very excited to have Congressman Tom McClintock in studio today, covering a variety of issues. We've already touched on Prop 8 and anchor babies.
Have we ever mentioned to you how much we love the radio ad that Fred Thompson did for you? I wish we'd listened to Tom McClintock.
We really liked that ad.
That was great. And before we get into
good times.
Any progress on getting me onto some sort of phony commission?
Plenty to choose from.
Are you following the race for governor in California at all?
I am, yes.
And Meg Whitman? Are you following Meg Whitman? Are you supporting Meg Whitman? Have you backed Meg Whitman?
No.
Are you prepared to endorse Meg Whitman?
I'm not prepared to endorse her right now. If it comes down to a choice between Arnold Schwarzenegger's third term with Meg Whitman or Jerry Brown's third term with Jerry Brown, any way you cut it, it's going to be a long 4 years.
That's well worded.
It bothers me that just a week or two after she had Pete Wilson go on the air across California assuring us that Meg Whitman supported 187 would be tough as nails on immigration, she starts running ads in the Spanish media opposed to 187 and also opposed to Arizona's law, which, again, is simply a determination to enforce existing federal law.
Oh, I see. Right. See, you've misspoke. She now says she supports Arizona's law for Arizona. but not for California.
Well, then that's a double problem because Arizona's law means that illegal immigrants are leaving for other states like California. So that makes it a bigger problem.